Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev and devnursery.com and grokOverflow.com. Just follow me on Twitter over there at AlexMercedCoder. But basically what I want to talk about today is how to create local storage in Node. Like basically local storage is this great API in the browser that allows us to store basic things in the browser, but it doesn't necessarily exist in Node. So what if I want to create something like that where I can just do a basic key value store? We'll show you how to do that. But before we do that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, so that way, more people see these videos. But with that, let's just do that. I'm going to create a new file. We're going to make this our local storage class. .js. Okay, so now first let's just create local storage in memory, in the sense that it's just going to be able to maintain a key value store that I can get and set items in memory. And then after that, we'll add the ability to save the data and persist the data. Okay, so we're going to call this class local storage. Okay, and then we're going to need a constructor. And our constructor is going to take no arguments, and essentially first it's going to do is just create like this dot data, which is going to equal a basically an empty object. Okay, because again it's just a basic key value store. Okay, and essentially when if you've used local storage, you know that has a few different functions. It has get item, which takes a key and then returns you a certain item. So essentially all this does is return this dot data key. Okay, so that's pretty much that method. That's literally all it does. Okay. Then there's going to be set item, where you give it a key and data. Okay, and essentially what that's going to do is basically this dot data key, when going forward, will now equal whatever that data is. Okay. And then there's remove item, which would be take a key, and then we'll just say, hey, this dot data key equals undefined. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so then we will export this module.exports local storage. Okay, and that's going to be equals local storage. Okay, and let's test it out real quick, just to make sure that it's working the way we think it is. Okay, so I am going to make a test.js, and then here I'm going to say const local storage equals require /local storage.js. Okay, so then what I need to do is create my local storage. So const local storage equals a new local storage. Okay, and then that creates our instance of local storage. Okay, and now I can first just add a key. So I'll say local storage dot set item. So we'll say, hey, name Alex Merced, and then we'll see if we can get that item. Console.log. Okay, local storage dot get item. Okay, and local storage dot get item. And then what I want to do is I want to get the name item. And then let's remove that item. Local storage dot remove item name. And then I should be able to run this again and get undefined when I do that again. Okay, so now let's run that. Okay, and let's see here, node test.js. And yeah, it works. Okay, cool. So basically just creating a key value store. I mean, technically, I essentially just recreated a map. Essentially, the map's already built in the JavaScript. But what'll make this more local storage is that we'll persist the data. And the way we'll do that is we'll use JSON files. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do is one, create the logic to check, hey, does the JSON file exist? So for that, I'm going to need the fs library from Node. So I'm going to say const fs equals require fs. Okay, so that stands for file system. It's built into Node. And I'm going to want to create a few methods to use here. Okay, so we're going to basically create two methods. One is load data. Okay. And essentially what this is going to do is just load any data that already exists. Okay. So if, okay, and then what we're going to do is do fs dot exist sync. So there's exist and there's exist sync. Exist is asynchronous, which means you'd have to pass a callback. And fs exist sync is synchronous, which means we can just do it imperatively. So I don't have to like worry about callbacks and promises and all that stuff. But it's single threaded. So again, keep that in mind if you ever try to create something like this, and you want to make sure that it scales up to your particular use case. But basically what this does, it checks whether a particular file exists, and what I want to check is whether localStorage.json exists. Okay, now if it does not exist, then what I want to do is, well, actually, if it does exist, then what I want to do is just basically take the data, so const data, which is going to basically be json.parse. So I'm going to parse the JSON data that's stored in that file, but first I got to read the file. So fs.read file sync. Okay, again, read file would be asynchronous. And then the file I want to read is /localStorage.json. So if the file does exist, then I'm going to read the file, parse the data as JSON, and that's going to be saved under data. And then what I'm going to say is this.data equals data. Okay, so that'll be our load data function. Simple as that. Okay, and then we're going to have a save data function. And all that does is just going to write, it's going to write whatever our data is to at the time to that file. So it'll always just basically say, hey, fs.write file sync. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is name the file. So ./localStorage.json. Okay, and then what we're going to do is say, hey, json.stringify this.data. Okay, and that'll just save that to that file. And now we want to use it, so we're going to make sure that, hey, after this loads up, we're going to do this.load data, just to in case the data is available. And then whenever we make a change, so this.save data, this.save data. Because whenever we move and set an item, we're technically making a change. So in that case, we want to save that. I don't do that when we get an item because no change is being made, so there's no need to save. Okay, and there we go. That's it. That should do it. Okay, and then we'll improve it even more in a second. But now let's watch what happens when I run the file. So node test.js. Okay, so I ran the file, same process, but now again we see the local storage.json got created. And if I look at it, it's empty because again we deleted that. But now let's run the test where I don't remove the item. Okay, so first we'll just run it where I just set the item. Okay, now if I go to local storage.json, see there it is. There it is. And now if I run this file again but get rid of the set item, so I never set it, it should still work because it's going to load that file first. And see, it still works. Awesome. Okay, so we've recreated local storage. I can create a persistent key value store. Simple as that. Now, of course, this isn't going to like scale to be sort of a replacement for like Redis. It doesn't have the kind of, optimizations and multi-threaded, goodness. That's something that's a little bit more built for this. But again, for simple use cases, like if you're just building like let's say a to-do list app or small app or small utility tool for yourself, this could be really useful instead of having to set up a whole full-fledged database for a simple like personal tool on your command line. But now maybe I want to have multiple local storage files. Okay, maybe I want to have multiple names. What I can do is I can optimize this further, and we can give it like a file name. So we'll pass a file name to the constructor. Okay, and then instead use that. So we'll say, hey, this dot file name. This dot file name equals file name. Okay. And then we're going to optimize the load data to use whatever this dot file name is. This dot file name. This dot file name. This dot file name. So now I can create multiple instances that write to different files. Okay, so just a little quick change makes all the difference. So now if I were to create this one and say, hey, this one's going to write to file1.json. Okay, and then I create another local storage, console local storage 2 equals new local storage 2.json. Okay. And then basically what I did is this. Let's just, we'll keep that one. Well, we need to set items. So we'll say local storage dot set item name, and this one we'll say Alex Merced. And then in the second one we'll say local storage 2 dot set item name Hector Merced. Now if this were all writing to the same file, the second one would overwrite the original key. But now if I write this, I can, now let's just run it. Okay, and we see two files got created, one.json, which has Alex Merced, and so now I can create multiple key value stores. Again, why would you want to do that is if, let's say, you are tracking several things, like let's say you're creating an application where you might maintain separate different to-do lists with separate different file names. That's a possibility. There's different reasons why you just want to have that ability to do that. So now, again, if I wanted to optimize this further, the next thing would be to like make it more multi-threaded. So basically be able to handle all of these file writes asynchronous, because as the files get larger, those file writes are going to take a lot longer. So in that case, I may not want to have it blocking the main thread. And then, you know, if I wanted to go even further, I could try to find ways to make it, you know, multi-threaded, where basically if multiple people are interacting with an application at the same time, it can sort of manage that. Maybe even build in some sort of like queue structure, so that way it can handle multiple requests. This is just a simple implementation. Again, for simple use cases, again, building like a CLI app that you're using for your own personal tools, like a personal to-do list or something like that. But hopefully this just gets your brain thinking about sort of how you can kind of use these patterns. My name is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, because I put out content all the time, and I have thousands of videos you can watch from the past and more to come. So check that out. I'll see you later.